Well, I am really excited to welcome you all here tonight. I'm excited to be your moderator. I'm just excited about this panel and everything that it means for our community. Am I holding it close enough? Okay, I got yelled at earlier for that. So, with that said, I am Amanda Buckley. I am a principal, and it looks like we've got an auto advance situation, so we're off to a great start, guys. Okay, all right, great. So I'm a principal and CMO at OmniPlan Architects, where I've been for nearly 20 years, like Nate said, and it's starting to feel like a long time, guys. Like that's starting to feel a little old. So I'm extremely proud of the portfolio that we've built throughout our almost 70 years as a firm. Our contributions to Dallas and what we've built have just been a real honor for me to be a part of, and a portfolio that I'm just truly passionate about and very excited about. So the area that I am most excited about is really growing the firm and looking for new opportunities to advance the firm through innovation, through technology, and just really what does the next 25 years of the firm really look like? What does the next 25 years of Dallas look like? What does the next 25 years of our architectural industry really look like? And so that's something that I'm really passionate about, and how we can build that. So this is a topic that I'm really looking forward to hearing a lot about tonight. So with that, AI is the innovation that I'm excited about, right? It's changing our worlds, and many are hesitant to this kind of innovation. I think I saw a Pew Center research statistic that said 85% of Americans are more concerned about AI than they are excited about it. So to me, that says we have a little bit of work to do in terms of adoption and just really kind of understanding what do those concerns mean and what are they really about. And so that's what we're really going to dissect today. Because as we'll learn tonight, it's very similar to any kind of innovation that we've seen throughout our society, from the Industrial Revolution, the printing press, the automobile, the telephone, the internet, the personal computer. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so this is really not that dissimilar, yet our fear of the robots is a real thing, right? So AI is already here. It's kind of already taking over. It's in everything. And it's being used in ways that I know I personally couldn't even imagine. When I started doing a little more digging, I know where AI is affecting me from a day-to-day standpoint with ChatGPT or Midjourney or all of those things that we see in the architectural world. But where is AI kind of affecting us in the rest of the world? And I mean, it's being used to enhance medical diagnoses. It's being used to trade stocks in a more efficient manner, and it's being used to turn semi-autonomous vehicles into fully autonomous vehicles, which I thought was really interesting. So tonight we're going to focus on how it's really affecting each of us, so I'm excited to engage our experts in the room today and hear a little bit more from them. So with that, I'm going to introduce our esteemed panel that I'm very excited about. It's a great cross-section of the industry and offers a lot of variety of perspective. So first, we have Samantha Flores. She leads Hugo. I didn't really know about Hugo, so I'm excited about that. It's Corgan's pioneering innovation and research arm. Her team focuses on data-driven design centered around the human experience, digging into the multifaceted impacts of emerging technologies. The team studies evolving human behaviors on future user experiences and built environments. Hugo provides a collaborative platform for Corgan for experimentation and product development alongside experts from diverse industries. Their groundbreaking work spans human-centered design research, exploring areas such as intuitive wayfinding, olfactory architecture, I'm kind of intrigued by that, and age simulation. Very intrigued by what that could mean. So please welcome Samantha. You can go ahead and take your seat. Next up, we have Clifton Harness, whose name precedes him, the co-founder of TestFit. And Clifton is deeply passionate about construction, both in terms of buildings and companies. Trained in architecture, Clifton embarked on a journey that led him from the world of design to the world of real estate development. Collaborating with his college roommate, Ryan Greige, Clifton ventured into technology innovation, giving rise to TestFit. Sounds a little bit like Zuckerberg to me, this whole college roommate thing. This AI-driven real estate feasibility platform empowers developers, architects, and contractors to optimize site potential with an overarching mission to utilize AI automation to elevate the development of vibrant communities. Clifton embodies a commitment to innovation and excellence. Please welcome Clifton. And then we have Josh Nason, who I think everybody in this room knows. I mean, just out there, it just seemed like you knew everybody. As an associate professor and the assistant director of the School of Architecture at UTA, Joshua is leading the Experimental Design Research Collaborative Iterative Studio. That is a mouthful. Joshua brings his expertise to the classroom, imparting knowledge in architectural design, mapping, urbanism, theory, and design build. With academic credentials from Texas Tech and Cornell, Joshua's contributions extend beyond teaching. He co-edited Chasing the City, Models for Extra-Urban Investigations, and he's the editor of the forthcoming book, K-Rob at 50, for AIA Dallas. Please welcome Josh. Alrighty, and then I'll join you as well. So I'm going to ask each of them to give us a little bit more of their passion and what they're excited about. And as any good moderator does, I'm going to also ask them for a little icebreaker question, right? What would this be without like a nice dumb icebreaker question? So I want to know what you're passionate about and your favorite dystopian movie, because I think that's a real good question today. So you want to take it off?
Sure, I'll start.
Yeah.
So I guess my passion is really around designing. Can you? Oh, am I not on?
Yeah.
You gotta push the button to turn on.
There you go. You're on.
Am I on? Can you hear me now?
Okay, good.
I can hear me now. I thought I would just talk louder. You could probably hear me if I just talked a little bit louder. So I guess I'm really passionate about the human experience. And I think as designers, we always say that we are interested in that. But I think a lot of the times when we as architects are thinking about space, sometimes we don't remember how it feels to actually be in that space, or how it feels to take part in that space. So I'm really interested in how technology and how human experiences can combine to kind of create a new way to design. That's why we design with smell. That's why we design looking at neural pathways and trying to understand how people's brains lead them through spaces. So that's really where my passion lies, is kind of digging a little bit deeper into how people really experience space.
And fun fact, I just learned this before we started, before you moved over to Hugo, you did my favorite parking garage, the C parking garage at Southwest, or Love Field. Yeah, same thing. And so I don't know if you guys feel the same way that I feel about that parking garage, but great job.
Yes, always
great
go
job.
park there.
Yeah, it's the best one. So,
And I actually have two favorite dystopian movies.
bring it, I love it.
So if anyone's seen Leave the World Behind, it scared me. It's so real, it could really happen. But also the same with Idiocracy, because it could really happen. So those are my two favorite dystopian movies.
Yeah.
What was the first half of your question?
What you're passionate about,
All right.
a little bit of an introduction, and I can throw your slide up as well.
Yeah, well, let me talk for a second first. So my passion really comes from trying to understand why we can't have more housing, in this country, the most wealthy, most powerful country in the history of mankind. And of course I was told that, growing up as a kid. And then I get into real estate development, and I'm trying to understand that what the problem is. And where I landed is like you kind of need to have an economics degree to truly understand the breadth of the complexity that comes into housing. And it's very little of it I learned in the long run was tied to the specific architecture of the building, and a lot more tied to sort of a question about highest and best use, which is more of an economics question, intimately tied to a design problem, which is buildings. So that's where I've landed is like how do you look at a building through an economic lens, but buildings need to be architecture. Architecture, the definition in my mind, is the meaningful creation of space. And so that's my passion, is where do you live between those two things? I think that as an architect intern, I lived a dystopian movie. I was asked to draw a lot of parking lots, and then when those parking lots looked good enough, I was then asked to send that stack of plans to OmniPlan, and then they would redraw the whole damn thing, and then they would confirm that because they made the architecture not shit, it looked great. So that's where I kind of started, and my path was with feasibility, was getting projects on track, like taking a deal and turning it into a project. Can we do the...
Yeah, I am. And apparently, didn't advance the slides at all. So pretend like you saw all of that.
So on the far left, you can advance one. Maybe it's supposed to start in sequence.
Something. Oh, there it goes.
All right. So over here on the left, this is like CAD. You're drawing a line. Yeah, over here. Look at the left. This is where the industry is, or where it was when I started. I want to draw a warehouse. I draw a big rectangle. I put it into the property. And then I move stuff around, and then the program tells me how big that rectangle is. All right, slide. This is kind of where we're at today. We're trying to hit a parking ratio given warehouse requirements, cross-dock, front load, back load, whatever it is. And we can do it instantaneously because we baked in all of the parametrics that are required for, in this case, a Prologis warehouse to be built. Slide. And where we're headed as a company is towards asset optimization. And so here, this doesn't exist in our software today, but this is a warehouse given the same criteria in the middle, but we're asking it to draw itself at every possible permutation and every possible combination of angle, but also dock considerations, trying to understand all of the spatial qualities of that piece of land given the kind of building we're trying to solve on that piece of land. So this is sort of the spectrum to try to give all of y'all the sort of background of where I would call it geometric AI is. We can draw stuff using parametrics very quickly, but we cannot create, in my view, architecture with the drop of a button. It's the meaningful creation of space. This is the allocation of space on a plan. Two different things. Okay.
Dystopian movie.
Oh, Jurassic Park probably. And I think it's really, if you're not looking at the AI, the rise of ChatGPT, large language model AI as a big moment, it really is. Here's something that simulates human intelligence in a way. And so when I look at Jurassic Park, it's they said, we unleashed the power of genetic energy without the proper respect that genetic energy actually had. And right now, I think with AI, like we are at much the same crossroads. Like, how are we treating this technology with respect, and how are we using it to advance mankind's aims? So.
That was really deep for Jurassic Park. I was surprised. So I did not see that coming. All right, Josh.
Well, after that, maybe we should just have a closing hymn. And, hi, everybody. I'm Josh. I want to say, actually, I'm really thankful to be here. I have so much respect for my partners up here, and hope I don't make myself look like an idiot as we talk about this. But I'm really excited to be here. To give you a little bit of idea of what I'm passionate about, I don't know if passion's the right word. I'm notoriously low energy. I'm docile even. I should warn you, I have a propensity for impropriety. And so this might get a little crazy here in a little bit. But the easy answer is my passion is for teaching. Like I love teaching and making, and I feel like I have the best job in the world to be able to teach people how to make and teach them through making. But a lot of what I focus on is what I believe the role of architecture is, and that's to mediate between people and place. And I love this opportunity that we have to make things, and this has changed a little bit over my career. I used to always just say I want to make good things, and now I want to make good things that do good things. Like I want to be a part of projects, whether they are built or whether it's a curriculum or whatever it might be, that actually improves the quality of life for people that engage that. And that's really where my love is. I spend a lot of time talking about drawing. In teaching, right? But I also have been very fortunate to be part of K-Rob for several years and talk about the mode of creation and communication for our discipline, which I think is really important. And if I could do a shameless plug, within the next month or so, a podcast that I'm working on is going to be launched called Drawing Conclusions, where we talk about the many roles of drawing and through a series of interviews. And so look for that. And I am really excited to be able to talk about some of these things that I think are really, really important about drawing. Now, dystopian movie, I think the easy answer is The Matrix, and I love The Matrix, but I really have to say WALL-E. Like, WALL-E is an absolute masterpiece in my mind, and simultaneously the most terrifying series of prophecies I probably have ever seen. As we all float around on our little chairs and stare at our screens, those chairs are now Toyota Priuses. Or Prii, whatever that might be, as we watch YouTube on our phone and smash into each other on the freeway. But there's a kind of benevolence in that and a kind of innocence, but it also a kind of reality that there are some serious consequences to how we use technology to distract ourselves. And what I'm really excited about is maybe we can figure out how to use technology not to distract us or make ourselves more comfortable, but challenge the nature of our roles and how we understand our responsibilities as professionals and as citizens, that these technologies could expand our impact in significant ways. And so I hope we can do that.
That was also amazing. Okay, you guys are doing great. Real quick, just a little housekeeping. We've got some people standing in the back. There's 3 seats right here, right next to Josh, and you have just witnessed.
And we warmed them for you.
Yeah. And also, I want to let you know that we have a text-in number. If you want to text in questions as we go, toward the end, we'll allocate about 15 minutes to address any questions. So you can text those in. So I kind of want to start by asking how many people in the room are actively using AI right now? Like at this moment? No, just kidding. But yes, you're using AI. Okay. How many of you are totally terrified of it? It could be the same people, honestly.
What are your panelists?
Yeah, okay, great. And how many of you are just like, I'm not using AI, but I'm AI curious. I've got questions. Okay, so that's, okay, so does that help frame the conversation for you guys? Okay, so we've talked about kind of this question about adoption and question about just the issues around AI. What do you think are strategies that could help people feel more comfortable with AI and sort of understanding it and being educated around it? Any of you can take that.
I can start. I feel like I can start and you all can bring it up with really great stories. I mean, the best way to get comfortable with something is just to jump in and get your hands messy. I feel like, a lot of us can be scared of anything without trying it. And you think about, past technologies, people were scared of electricity, and look what it's brought us. I mean, we wouldn't be able to have this here in this room without electricity. And, people were scared of the internet at one point, and, I can almost guarantee most of you are carrying the internet around in your pocket. So, when we think about AI, all we have to do is kind of jump in and get our hands messy and try it out and test out a few things and see if, there's a way for us to kind of explore AI. And when you jump in and test it, you'll start to see the boundaries of where it's been explored and where it can go. And you might see that it's not as smart as you are scared it might be. You might see that it's smarter than you think it is, but there are different boundaries for AI that we haven't yet explored. And so, jumping in and trying it out can always help to kind of ease those fears.
Yeah, I think one thing that would make you more comfortable is like as you venture in, use somebody else's private data and not your own. That'll help ease the sting a little bit. No, I think
He's offering his.
Uh-oh.
This is his phone number, actually.
No, I do think just jumping in and trying it, but I also believe that comfort has to be measured. I do think that there are some legitimate concerns and some legitimate measures that we have to take to make sure that privacy and authorship and certain things are actually thought about. And I know we're waiting for some legislation to come down to dictate some of that. But at the same time, I think as you venture in within a measure of your own comfort and then slowly expand that, but inform yourself about what you're doing and how it has impact and how you're being kind of put out there along the way. But even just looking in and doing some deeper research about what AI is out there and realize that there's a plethora of different kinds of AI and choosing the ones that you think are most beneficial or useful for you, help you to take it kind of one step at a time.
So start off with like a gateway AI that really kind of leads
Before you
to
get
the
really
hard
hooked.
stuff.
Let me talk about innovation in AEC just for a second.
Yeah.
So what was the most impressive thing about BIM? Just thinking back, BIM arrives on the scene, what does it do well? So you have in AEC a lack of abundance. There is no abundance in AEC. You have, when BIM comes along, an abundance of plans and elevations being coordinated in real time for the first time virtually. So that leads to risk being extracted out of construction documents. And where we start to have real practical influence in AEC with AI, artificial intelligence, is where we see opportunities where risk can be pulled out of buildings. And risk can be pulled out because you can look at an asset with abundance. You now no longer have one intern working 1 week to do one building. You can now have one principal sit behind a console and generate 300 million buildings and arrive at a better risk-adjusted decision. So it comes down to abundance versus scarcity and risk versus less risk. And that's how innovation moves in architecture.
Can I add on? Because I think it's interesting that you're bringing up the concept of risk, because when we talk about AI in architecture, especially in the profession, and you hit on this, that we're looking at the legality, we're looking at, ways that we can safeguard our data as a firm. So there are certain programs that we're having to test and trial and kind of set aside until they can get their ducks in a row. But I also think that AI can help us not only assess risk in the documentation of the practice, the construction documentation or what we're doing on site, but it can also, what we're seeing in some city governments in like North Carolina and California, they're looking at risk and using AI in a lot of different ways. So for instance, some of their emergency systems, they're able to use AI to talk in multiple languages, to even talk to people that have literacy issues or have ability issues, mobility issues. So AI is helping them in a lot of different ways. So we're also looking at AI helping people in an experience within the building to help them get out of the building in emergency situations. Or in the case of some healthcare providers, they're using AI as part of their navigation tools to help people coming into a hospital in a complex environment in a very, very stressful and strenuous situation. That they can have talk to text AI where it says, I need to go to room 305 or I need to go to OR 208 or whatever, and the AI will lead them. They don't have to read any of the signs, because when you're in that stressful situation, and we know this from our navigation tools that we use, some retina scanning devices to help us understand navigation, people don't always read signs appropriately, and they will spend about 15 minutes misnavigating a complex environment. So AI can really help in, when you said risk, I know you're talking about it in a different way, but I come from that lens of human experience where it's like it can help us kind of experience the world in a different way and avoid risk.
Well, so let's step back for a second and go back to that gateway drug. Where can you sort of start jumping in and playing around a little bit? Like what's an easy thing for you to do so that you have a place that you can play around with?
I mean, I think the easiest way to start is ChatGPT, to be honest.
Samantha makes her grocery lists in ChatGPT, which is genius. She does her whole meal planning, and I did it today, and it's amazing.
It's helpful.
So,
It puts it in order of the grocery store, and it just makes it so much easier. Especially with a toddler at home or in the basket who doesn't want to be there. But I think that there are so many interesting ways that ChatGPT could be used and can be fun for people. I had someone write my performance review in the tone of Dr. Seuss. So, that was a great performance review for me.
Imagine you have a robot, but not just one robot, you have billions of robots that can scrape the internet, which is the sum total of humankind's ability to, or the sum repository of humankind's knowledge is the internet. So they train robots to grab all of the information on the internet. And that means structured data most of the time. It means text. If you have a whole line of text, a whole novel, and you train a robot, billions of robots, on how to read a novel, they will all of a sudden have the ability to recall the billions of times that they wrote a novel. And so the AI that we have in ChatGPT is a statistical model. It's weights that say, if I'm given these kinds of inputs as a robot, I'm going to give these kinds of outputs as a robot. It has about the human intelligence level of about a 4-year-old. So my 4-year-old can, or almost 4-year-old, she can take her clothes off, has no idea how to put her clothes back on, right? So you have to remember, like, the intelligence of these models is limited to what context those models have. And in most of the cases, what we have on the internet today is context models that have been trained on petabytes of text, humans talking to each other, or petabytes of pictures, which is pictures of the real world. Now, my 3.5-year-old ingests every day more information than what an LLM can do, because her eyeballs process more information than a picture can create. So this is why human minds are brilliant, is that they can take in far more information due to our audio cortex than what a large language model can take in scraping the internet with robots. That is artificial intelligence for a large language model. Yeah, like what is the internet? What is the internet? It's a bunch of idiot people bitching about whatever the hell on social media, right? Like, so we're training all of these large language models on what? Garbage.
To go back to
So what you have as a professional in architecture is an opportunity to be a professional in architecture, right? Like this 4-year-old worth of intelligence in a large language model has no idea what IBC is, has no idea what half the stuff is.
All right. So do you have initial thoughts, Josh? Or-
Well, yeah, one thing I was going to say is about 10 or 15 years ago, there was this common image that went around that showed visually that of all the information that had been collected through all of humanity was doubling by the year. I think it was around 2012, and like the information that was kind of culled from the world in 2012 matched 2011 back. And there's this idea that everything we do leaves traces and has information, and this to me is a precursor of where we are now with artificial intelligence. And if you're ever wondering if you're engaging with artificial intelligence, this is overly simplistic, but look for moments of automation. If you're actually seeing automation in some trace, there's a good sense that there's some kind of artificial intelligence. My again, overly simplistic read on this is since 2012, we've realized that there's a need to curate and to synthesize and to use that information. And artificial intelligence is a way that automation helps us sift through that information to some kind of useful end. Now it's up to each of you to decide if that's benevolent or nefarious or anything in between, but there's this idea that information now gets leveraged into something or processed into something.
Well, I think it's a good time for us to talk about the ethical implications of AI and the concerns around that. So maybe if we could just shift gears to talk about what are the ethical issues.
Where to begin? So there's more nefarious startup entrepreneurs than me out there. I'd say I'm rather tame compared, but your data, your intellectual property, your copyright, your stamp, the things that protect you are no longer going to protect you in a large language model world. And the challenge is that we don't actually have a large language model world that you could build for AEC. And as architects working together as colleagues and with engineers to go and try to create bespoke prototypes for every single building that we build, right? That's our IP, right? And I don't think that AI is going to have, I think AI is going to have a hell of a time to try to recreate that. But what AEC needs to do is to be far more proactive about how do you claim the rights to the IP in the data that y'all create. Like, the buildings that you create, great, that's fine. The data that is created in pursuit of making those buildings, you need to protect the hell out of it, because there's a guy similar to me, likely younger, gonna come in and he's gonna do his first 15 red lines and he's gonna be like, this industry is bullshit. I'm gonna change how we do this, and they're gonna start generating a large language model for buildings. Like, there is a window to get ahead of it. It is right now. Someone at the AIA, someone needs to get the hell ahead of it. And I haven't seen any leadership. I haven't seen anything from groups that should be saying things like, we're behind. We are far behind. Don't wait for Autodesk. Get together, be more powerful. Like, that's my advice today. 5 years from now, when all of y'all are my customers and y'all are suing me for monopoly, whatever, just remember that I said you needed to protect your data better. And yeah.
I'll just add to the ethical question. So again, it might be Pew that you mentioned earlier, but Pew Research has said something about like between 65 and 75% of people are worried about misinformation with AI. And I think Clifton kind of has hit the nail on the head with, yes, that's quite possible. Your question earlier, it is quite possible with, large language models reading all of the information from the world and just regurgitating whatever is out there on the internet, which we all know is not always factual. Did anybody see the picture of the Pope wearing a puffy Balenciaga jacket? Okay. Yeah. So there was so much debate around this jacket, and Balenciaga was like, "Well, we don't remember him taking this picture, and that's 2 seasons ago." And it caused a huge debate. But then, of course, all the internet sleuths were like, "This is AI," because look at his hand and look at his, the collar. And I think that it required a lot of people to kind of debunk this jacket picture. And it's the same in the music industry. Drake's music has been knocked off by AI. We've seen some architectural drawings being knocked off by AI and not be responsible. So I do think that there's an incredible lift of responsibility from us in the practice, and as just people to make sure that we are using AI responsibly, or that we are taking in and ingesting AI responsibly. That's in maybe visual, and musical and different areas. I think one area where we should also hold AI a little bit more responsible is in sustainability. I think us as architects are probably, assuming that there's a lot of architects in the room, we're just, we're always loving of the world and the earth, and we're always trying to do better with our buildings. And AI actually, to train one language model takes about 700 liters of water. That's about the same as the entire manufacturing process of 350 standard US cars, like a BMW, for example. It takes the same amount of emissions to create an AI language model as almost 700 lifetime emissions of a vehicle here in the US. So when we're thinking about using AI responsibly, the people who are creating AI are very well aware of this and are working on it. The people who are operating AI platforms are very well aware of the carbon emissions and the water usage and are trying to find new solutions. But us as everyday users, putting our grocery list together on ChatGPT may not be aware that when we're putting our grocery list together, then we're choosing an outfit for Taylor Swift, then we're trying to plan our vacation, all using this large language model, that it's going through a data center that's using a lot of water, and there's a lot of carbon emissions. And so we also need to take ownership of our responsibility using AI, but our buildings, when we're talking about making our buildings more efficient, using AI models, when we're talking about putting our buildings in the place where we can literally say, it's really hot in here, and the building can go through and think of how they can optimize the energy in the best way to reduce the temperature. That is also using AI that is not being as efficient with carbon emissions and water usage as it could be. So this is an area that we're gonna have to work on as architects and engineers and innovators in the next few years. And I think we can get there. It's just gonna take a lot of ingenuity.
Yeah, that sustainability thing, I had no idea.
Yeah, I think I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no.
I think this sustainability factor is absolutely enormous. I also think that we have to extend the ethical questions we're asking AI to how we are operating in our own processes in life and in work and in all of those kinds of things, right? Because it's really easy to say AI is changing the authorship of music. But let's not pretend that many of those musicians that are complaining weren't sampling other people's music to make their music, right? And there's a way that we can, and I'm not trying to excuse an automated model from any kind of ethical questions, I just think we can be a bit hypocritical about how we do some of these things. As an example, as a professor, a lot of professors are really afraid that students are using chat to write papers. And then if you ask them how they're measuring that, they use chat to tell them if the student used chat. And it's to me, the hypocrisy in that is really deep and rich, right? In reality, what we should be questioning is the role of a paper and like how we actually test knowledge and absorb knowledge, because there's a way that I think we have to be a little bit more nimble and creative. If we sit here and we use ethical questions that are really valid, but if we use them as a mask behind which we hide and cover up our fears of AI, guess what? It's here, it's happening, we're not going to escape it. We'd be better off to ask deeply ethical questions about how we use it and how it operates, and be more introspective and reflective as well, so that we can actually train these thinking models in a way that we believe is ethical, right? Because it learns from the things that we put into it. So let's make sure we are putting ethics into it in a way to help train that. And again, I'm not trying to say that there isn't questions and there isn't problems. I'm just saying that we actually get a moment. Let's let AI draw toilet partitions that we don't care about while we sit back and ask deeply ethical questions about the role of an architect in a neighborhood. To me, that's actually a really positive way that we could think about these models.
The AI intern will spec that partition wrong. They'll get it wrong, for sure.
So what is AI not doing well then? Hands, we know hands. It can't do hands.
AI is gonna not do well. It's just a reflection of all of you. Like, it does not well the things that humans do not well.
It's true, I also cannot draw a hand.
But it also doesn't empathize, and I think humans do that really well.
Yeah.
And AI also right now cannot replicate dexterity. So when we're thinking about, a lot of people are worried about service jobs, for example, that could potentially go away because of AI. So you think of cashiers, there are lots of companies that are looking at replacing their cashiers with AI. That's a service opportunity, that's a lower paid job, that's an easier to fill job. So maybe AI can take over that job.
The
But
first robots will be construction workers.
another service area is a daycare provider. And they provide empathy and dexterity because they gotta chase those little kids everywhere. They are not gonna be replaced by AI anytime soon because they have those two qualities. So I think when we're thinking about architecture, not that we're talking about replacement with AI, we were talking about what AI can't do, but what AI can't do right now is it cannot empathize and it cannot use dexterity. So when we think about our positions as architects, maybe we should think from that lens and that frame of mind and think about what we can do really great for the built environment, because we don't want to draw parking garages for the rest of our lives or toilet partitions. But what we do want to do is create spaces that humans really love to be in and experience and have that awe moment of wow. And that's where I think we as architects can have a little bit more agency and still use AI as a tool.
Yeah, I think there's probably a toilet partition support group somewhere in the world. We always slam toilet partitions, right? Nobody wants to draw them. Everybody hates them. Yeah, I really appreciate that, Sam, because I think that there's a level of humanity and there's a level of curation that is important to the architect. And so there's a way that if you think about the role of the lead architect and the role of the intern, the role of the lead architect for now, I think, remains intact, where it's about critical review, it's about thinking deeply, it's about understanding contextual moves, where the labor is what's next on the chopping block, right? And so now we could think ahead and be like, well, what does that mean in 20 years if there's a fleet of interns that were never interns that are now principals? But we can ask these questions one step at a time. I do think that there is if we really think deeply about what we contribute as people, it goes beyond efficiency. It goes on beyond like the perfect moment in the project, right? If you think about the best details you've drawn in a project as an architect, they're probably not the details that were perfectly optimized and pulled out of a catalog, right? They were the ones that you crafted very, very specifically, and AI is not there yet, and it might be a long time before AI is there. It's those little awkward, beautiful moments, right, that are not going to be just easily scripted because they're not best practice. They're not the kind of perfect model. And I don't think we should try to train AI to always do the perfect model, like the ideal thing, because it's the in-ideal that gives character and value to projects many times, but it's not there yet.
So where are areas for enhanced creativity? How do we use AI to open up our minds to be more creative and use AI to do the more mundane things?
I feel like we're like so TestFit's not a large language model. TestFit's like Revit. We built parametrics. It's very powerful because we're thoughtful about the human engineering that goes into it. Our parking solver was written by a human. It wasn't written by some box in the cloud that you put electricity into and money comes out, right? So you have a trust problem, I think, right? Like, architecture is a professional practice. You have to trust that the output of this thing is professional quality material. So a lot of the large language model guys, they make like Midjourney. They're like, we're gonna help all of the designers show people what the design is. It's like, if I was an architect, I'd be like, that was my job, right? So for AI, it's like where do you find the right jobs to take from the humans? And in my view, it was like parking was annoying, unit mix drawing was annoying, calculating the areas of stuff was really annoying. And so we just endeavored to automate all of the stuff that we hated about like SketchUp and AutoCAD and Revit. And that's what we put into a feasibility tool. Like, be careful with the technology you engage with because it might end up mastering you. And then the second thing is don't give away the stuff that you love doing. Like, if your firm's great at watercolors, like why are you gonna invest in Midjourney plugins or whatever, right? So you might say, our firm needs to do AI because everybody else is doing AI. That's a dumb reason to do AI. Do AI because every 30 minutes, Bob, who's been my client for 70 years, I know it takes forever as an architect to become successful, right? So you're 70 by the time Bob's continuously coming after your work. Bob just needs a Midjourney rendering to leave me the hell alone for the weekend, right? And that would be enough, right? So context by context, client by client, you need to think, what is meaningful to automate here? And don't automate away what makes your firm an amazing firm. Don't automate away your culture. And definitely don't believe startups that have been around for 5 minutes that they can automate construction documents. That's crazy. Like, that doesn't work. We can automate the drawing of parking lots. And we're $22 million invested. Okay, do you think anyone else can just create CDs out of thin air? No, that's crazy. It takes 25 years to learn how to do CDs well.
Just to add to both what Clifton and Josh said, hold it up, sorry. I told you I would be the worst offender. So what you were saying earlier about the little accidents, the happy accidents that happen that we design into and we hope people enjoy. I'll never forget going to the Oslo Opera House and realizing that the perforation on the exterior of the Opera House is actually Braille for their most famous opera, which an AI would not think of. And the door handles are the profile of the building. So, two little happy accidents that aren't accidents that were actually planned by the architect, but they're happy accidents when you find them out. And then to talk about, the tool being just spitting out the documents. One of the things I realized when we started using BIM a lot more, there are a couple of buildings here in downtown, I will not call them out, but they look like Revit buildings to me. I don't know how to explain it, but they just look like someone learned Revit and did a building. And I think someone could possibly...
No, you misunderstand. One firm made a buttload of money that one building because they didn't screw with anything.
Okay, well, yes. But I guess my point is that when we're learning new technology, a lot of the times we let it drive us because we're learning it, and then we come into our own with the creativity. So that's something that I think we're seeing with Midjourney. I think, and no offense to some of these firms, but we can create a really pretty Zaha building with Midjourney because there's so much imagery to pull from with that quality, with those characteristics and that design style that fit that program really well. So a lot of our designs where we might have previously designed like Lake Plado, now we're designing like Zaha all of a sudden because we're using AI, it's because we're letting the tool run us. Where it will help is when we start to realize it's not a tool that can run us, it's a tool that can help us. And we have to take what it gives us and reinterpret it in our own style. And I think that that's where we will find a level of creativity unlocked for ourselves when we're using it as a starting point or a tool or a help, an intern, if you will.
Yeah, I think, I'll just say in academia, what we're doing is what a lot of studios that are engaging with Midjourney and DALL-E and some of these other ones, we're using it for iterations. Like, you can use the tool to generate a massive amount of iterations very quickly. The danger is then you pin them up on the wall, you throw a dart at one and you move forward. hopefully what we're doing is we're now using this to teach students critical evaluation of what's in those pieces. So if we're using it to actually iteratively look at thousands of ideas and then critically evaluate those and make judgment calls and teach students or young architects, this is why this works, this is why this doesn't. Or if we use it to generate drawings in the future and we teach our young interns how to redline, right? Like we're actually creating ethical authorship, critical thinking, all of the skills that we really value.
Let's fix the broken neural net one red line edit at a time.
I think we could actually use it to get more work and more versions and deeper critical thought of things, where I think what many of us are afraid of is that we just use it to spit out a quick solution and move on. But frankly, if we're willing to let it spit out a quick solution and move on, we're already doing that in our work. We're already copying all of our details from a past project. We're already gathering imagery from other people's buildings and stealing them anyway. So, and I don't mean that was very rude, sorry, but I just think there's a way that we can use it to hasten the kind of creative, iterative process, and then we invest that time in critical evaluation and in refinement, which to me could be another productive way to think about it.
Yeah, and that critical evaluation is absolutely necessary, because right now AI, especially with Midjourney, DALL-E, all of the visualization platforms, that's what they are. So they do have an algorithm bias towards buildings that are sightless. So we may be designing a building in Dallas, Texas, but it's using images that we like from Nordic countries.
Yeah.
So how can we design a building that's built for a Nordic country here in Dallas, Texas? It would not work in the summer, I'm telling you that. So that critical evaluation is absolutely necessary when we're looking at it as a starting point in the tool.
I should clarify one thing I said. I'm not saying you should draw all of your details brand new every project. Like that's a
Let the
waste of
AI
money.
do it for
right?
you.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't look at precedents. I'm talking more in a kind of extreme example. Efficiency is very important as well.
Okay, well, I think it's time for us to switch to Q&A. I know that there's a lot of questions in this audience. So Ryan Plale is going to help me with our text and numbers. So what have we got?
How important is it for organizations to develop an AI policy or code of conduct when integrating AI into our workplace?
Okay, so should organizations develop a code of conduct when it comes to AI in our organizations?
It's important, but like this is architecture. Like you have other things like gender equality, other stuff that's I would say is more important right now.
I mean, I would say it's absolutely important, because what we're learning is some of these, and I do agree gender equality is equally important.
We have
for
some
the
other
one-
acute issues.
But when we're looking at evaluating programs that we want to use on our projects, there are some programs that will take your data and use it as the generating tool for other people using that platform. So what we don't want to do is give our valuable and IP or our valuable design work, or sometimes our confidential design work, to a platform that can then spit that out as an iterative design for someone else's work. So we have to critically evaluate every single platform that is brought to us. I think there's a whole team at Corgan that's doing this, and I do think that they deserve, a little hooray, because everyone is bringing us a new AI tool at all times and wondering why we can't use it. Why is it blocked? And that's because we're going through this process, and in sometimes we're actually reaching out and working with the platform to lock down their data security. So it's extremely important, I think, to have this code of conduct on that end, and then also on the designer end. One rule that we operate by is that we can never take an image straight out of AI and use it in a design iteration with a client. We have to critically modify it before we can ever present it to a client. And that goes back to that critical evaluation. Does it meet their needs and their goals? Same with the language that we get from ChatGPT or other
Critically modify, like change the levels, hue saturation, or
Yes.
like
Birds in the sky.
Yeah.
Birds in- I would say these policies probably already exist in some kind of sense in the way you're protecting your creative and intellectual property already. So it's an outcropping of that. But as you write it, I would just say, I would recommend being open and review that very quickly. So as the technology changes, that you are actually thinking fluidly about what that looks like and how you approach that.
Okay. Anything to add?
Protect yourself from your clients too.
What else you got, Ryan?
AI-type technologies have been present for years, such as machine learning. Is the fear around AI a branding issue, or how do you better market it?
Okay, so is the fear around AI a branding issue? Does it need to be marketed more effectively?
Yeah,
I think
the
it's-
hardware, y'all remember Bitcoin mining? That led to much more efficient hardware, which led to large language models being much more economically viable. So that's why it's happening now.
Yeah, I love this question. I think this question's quite important. And the reality is like, we've been using traces of AI for generations, right? And we've had the same kind of like, it's not necessarily AI specifically, but we've had the same kind of revolutionary moments when we shifted from hand drawing into AutoCAD and from AutoCAD into 3D modeling and 3D modeling into Revit. And like automation is increased at each of those steps. And so I don't know if I would frame it quite as a branding issue, but I think there's a moment where we can no longer deny that it's been creeping up and it became a reality, like an eminent, strong reality. And this is why I think that's actually a good thing, is because we, for far too long as a discipline, have kind of creeped along with it and not stopped to ask deep questions about what the role of an architect is in a social sense, in an environmental sense. And we have a little bit at a time, And now the kind of emergence of it creates a problem where we now have to really embrace what the role of an architect is now and what it will be in 10 years and in 20 years. And so I think it's an immediacy. I think it's become very intense and unavoidable at this moment. And I think it's a chance for us to kind of recollect and rethink about what we think the future of architecture is. And I don't mean that the machine is the future. I mean, we allow it to change how we operate and use our time in more meaningful ways.
I'll just add really quickly that there is a huge difference between machine learning and what we called AI with machine learning and what AI actually is. With machine learning, it is repeating back to us in the most efficient way our inputs that we've given it. And with AI, it's completely deciding new ways of working. The best way to explain this is there's this video game where the goal of the game is to go across the finish line, but you have to get points. And those points are coins, or maybe it's swimming through or boating through, navigating through specific lagoons, putting out a fire on your ship. But the goal is to end the game at the finish line. A machine learning model will go across the finish line, and AI will not. The AI will crash itself so that it can get more points by putting out the fire, and because the AI has known that you actually win the game by getting more points, not just crossing the finish line. So that, I think, is why AI is so scary to people, is that it will find a different way to get to where we want it to go, and it might be uncomfortable because we don't know what that input is. We haven't created that input before. It's creating a whole new input for us, and we have no visibility into it, and we have no control over it. Now, you might say that we do have more control over it. You're kind of in the back end of those things, but from just the general user perspective, it seems uncontrollable, and that's why it's scary.
I mean, I think it is a branding issue. I think we need better dystopian future movies where everything doesn't all go to hell in a handbasket. Maybe that'll be positive. What else have you got, Ryan?
Do two more?
Sure.
So much of design is based off of instinct. With the advent of AI implementation across production and AEC as a whole, how do we maintain the human factor in design and architecture, and where does instinct find its place?
That's a lot.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Do you just fully repeat it? Sorry. I'm like, I can't
It's a really good
paraphrase that
question.
back. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
So much of design is based off of instinct. With the advent of AI implementation and the production of architectural documentation and the AEC industry as a whole, how do we as architects maintain the human factor in design, and where does instinct find its place?
Y'all ever see Iron Man? Okay. Y'all see the one where there's like the drone version where there's not a human inside and like they're stupid and they start to fire on people and stuff?
Iron Man 3, I believe.
Yeah. Iron Man 3, thank you. So where we're at right now, I think, is the Iron Man suit phase of innovation, where like the human is by far and away significantly better at decision making, like on point, in time, on the ground, with the machines around them. What we won't have for a while are drones that you could trust to do anything meaningful by themselves. Like they might be able to do some crazy things like win at Go, but anything more complex where there's limited data, they're gonna have a hell of a time. So, for example, like the US, we build like 500,000 apartment units at most in a year. That means that there's only, at best, 500,000 data points modeled in BIM, maybe, probably not, for what is in an apartment unit. Okay, well, how do you build a large language model? You need a whole lot more than 500,000 data points. So there's a big problem ahead of us.
I think to the point of instinct, where is our instinct as an architect, and do we still have that agency with AI? I think the easiest answer, and I think one that many of you in the audience have probably already given to people that have asked you this question, is AI will automate parts of the job that where our instinct is not necessary and not needed. So, I come from aviation architecture, and boy, I've spent so many hours just rearranging furniture in the concourse on plan because we need 5 seats instead of 4 seats, and how do I scoot that in, and there's tolerances, and AI can help me with that. And where I can have my instinct and my agency is knowing that, 80% of people go to the hold lounge first. They want to see concessions from their hold lounge, or else they won't participate in that hold lounge. So I've got to make sure all of these hold lounges, gate lounges, the place that you go to wait before your flight, I've got to make sure that they're all visible to concessions and that they can see a restaurant or a retail store. And that's a shape issue, that's a form issue, that's a design issue, and that's a design quality I'm trying to put into this project. Let the furniture arrange itself. That's where I think our instinct can be better served and where AI can support us in that.
Yeah, I really appreciate this question because I think this is maybe an underlining fear for a lot of people. Like, does it take design away? Does it take instinct away? And I don't know if this is a perfect or a complete answer, but I'll say when I talk to my students, particularly young students, I try to teach them that their eyes are as important as their hands in a creative process. That it really is about seeing and understanding and thinking through those things. And I don't think AI changes that, at least not in its present iteration, right? Because I think if going back to the idea of using iterations and critical evaluation, and you have students building and making and thinking and looking and evaluating, and it's not just for students, it's for all of us, that inspiration, that creativity, that kind of nuance that occurs is still in the hands of the architect. And I'll say, I think both my partners here have actually talked about maintaining what you find valuable and like investing in that. So if anything, we should be delegating the things that are not productive in that way to the bot and spending our time in those moments to make sure that we are honing and training ourselves and our employees and our students and our clients potentially in those moments and creating that visual literacy that then generates the kind of design response to that.
Vitruvius.
I was just going to say, it's like creating the robo vacuum, because no one wants to vacuum, but everyone wants to spend more time with their family. That's what AI can do for us.
So the Vitruvius had 3 criteria, right? Firmness, commodity, delight. The first 2, you can automate those. You can't automate delight. You can't do it. You can simulate it, you can think about it, but not really.
Actually,
Olfactory over here.
well, Disney, this is just an interesting point, but Disney is using AI to they're training their AI on visual perception. Sorry, I'm going down a nerd path here for a second.
I love it, go.
Thank you for being here with me. So if you go into a Disney ride, what happens is they are actually reading your retina. So if you are not intrigued by what is being shown on maybe the immersive screens, they'll change that information to better suit your perception and what you're interested in. So say, for instance, a 4-year-old went through this ride before you. It's too scary for them. They're going to change it to, mushrooms and flowers, the visual. But you're going in as a teenage boy. This is actually on their patent, is a 4-year-old going in and looking at flowers, and a teenage boy coming in being bored by the flowers and wanting to see women in bikinis. That's on their patent. You can find it on the internet. But it will change, and they're using AI to change that perception so that you can have more delight in your experience going through their rides. So,
Yes,
can be
delight means more porn.
semi-manufactured.
Okay, with that, I feel like we're probably at time, right?
I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, well, our panel will stay afterwards for any one-on-one questions that you might have.
Semi-manufactured delight.
Another question.
Okay, give me another one real quick.
How will AI affect client relations when it comes to compensation, schedule, and similar features?
I think in terms of proposal writing, do you think AI will help us? Yeah, I'm repeating. How will AI help us in terms of running our business? Compensation, how will it change general things like that? How we write proposals, how we think about how we compensate ourselves for our services?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things is it will take some of the guesswork out of those things in terms of proposals and estimates and compensation. Like, you'll be able to test all of those models. You'll be able to specify it for your market and for level of experience and for all of that. That I think makes some of that easy and takes some of that guesswork out. But I also think we want to be careful and not use AI to actually manipulate other people, right? Because you could very easily say, like, please tell me how to talk to this person to get them to do what I want them to do. And we have to be really careful to not use it as a kind of tool of manipulation, but rather talk about how can I develop a quality relationship, how can the output be mutually beneficial. There's other ways that we can kind of use it more benevolently.
Okay, I like ending on that. How do we feel about that? Okay. All right.